Good, I think we finally managed. Yeah, as Tony says, you know, I'm Morten, I'm the CEO of GetByBus, a product which we fully built here in Split. And basically, today, if it works, wait a second. I'll just do it with a finger, maybe this works. I'm gonna tell you how it came that I, as a Danish guy, ended up here in Split and many years ago, and what I've been doing till then, and how it came that I started building up GetByBus and what we have been doing the last couple of years with GetByBus, and also a few issues Tony asked me to get into was if I could done the same in Denmark and what I generally think about building up a company here in Split. So basically, most people which I meet and speak with, when I tell them that I'm from Denmark, the usual question is, but are you married to a Croatian? And when I then tell them, no, I actually live here because I like to live here. And then normally they get this strange look, and I think most of them are thinking, either he's crazy or he's criminal. But I can assure you that the last part is definitely not the case. So. So there's other reasons actually to move from Denmark to Split. I can think of several ones. I mean, this is at least one case. It's not the only one, but these pictures are from April the same in Denmark and in Split. So of course that speaks for itself. But that is of course not the only reason. So basically I'm born in what you call the dark part of Denmark, up in a corner far away from Copenhagen where all the government is sitting. So I actually had a quite nice childhood in this small city with 5,000 people. And there was not much thinking about becoming a startup or actually not thinking much about what I actually wanted to do with my life. So I finished elementary school and of course went on to high school because that was what everybody was doing. And I was still, you know, more and more I had to think about what should you do with your life, and nothing really popped up where I said, this is what I want to do. So basically, I chatted with friends, chatted with family. Yeah, but if you don't know what you do, go to the university. Okay, then basically I continued to the university, started studying economy, which was basically, it was fun, there was a lot of parties, but actually the things which we learned and stuff, none of it really, I didn't feel it was interesting, and I couldn't imagine myself sitting in some company 30 years, 20 years doing something related to that. It was simply not me. So after 1.5 years of studying, I started thinking what to do, I need to do something completely different, and I heard many times that the Danish Prime Minister said, if the Danish people, you need to go out to Europe, you need to go to other countries, to learn how it is in other cultures, and then take these things back to Denmark so that we can use these inputs here. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna see if I can get an internship or a job somewhere away from Denmark. So then one evening I was watching television, and there was this lady on the news saying that they had set up a program where you could go to different countries as an internship for Danish daughter companies in different countries. So this was in October 1994. So I called this lady who was on the television yesterday and said, I want to go. And then she said, yeah, but you cannot go now. It's October. It's only in August you could go. I don't want to go in August. I want to go now. That was not possible. Well, then, okay, that idea was not good. Then next day when I came home from the university, then the phone rings. And apparently there was also some companies who saw the same program as me. So one company also called them a little bit later than me, asking if they had any student who wanted to go now. So this guy called me up and said, we heard that you want to go. Yes, we are sitting in Hamburg in Germany. Are you interested? Yes. When can you start? Tomorrow. Okay, I'll pick you up on Friday. Then he picked me up on Friday, and we had an interview, and then basically I drove with him back to Denmark, and Monday, he called me during the weekend. Yeah, we decided you can start, so you can come with me down on Monday. So that was basically me going away from Denmark. So the company I came down to was a small company. I was the 7th employee, and basically I just had to help out everywhere, especially with finances and stuff, because I was quite good at that and I had studied a bit of economy. So that's where I started out. At Christmas, the guy basically, I drove with the CEO I was back on her Christmas holiday, and I drove with the CEO back to Hamburg after Christmas, and then he said to me, yeah, I forgot to tell you something, Morten, here. During the Christmas holiday, we had to sack the lady who was in charge of the finances. So when we get back to Hamburg, or down to Hamburg today, you take over that part. Well, I knew something about the stuff, but not enough to run it. So I learned to work, because that was basically the only way to do it. And the company kept growing, more and more employees, but still, you know, it was small, startup, nice, moving. We were doing all kinds of stuff. And basically, I kept getting new tasks. At the beginning, I had an internship which was supposed to last for 8 months, then it became 2 years, and then it just kept on going. And all the times, I had option to grow to new positions. There was never something which was the same, which I had to do for a very long period. You know, there was always option to try out new stuff, and that was totally me. Then, about 1998, it happened that the company started getting very big, because they bought some other companies. So we went from being 40, 50 people to being 700-800 people. And that was, of course, a dramatic change, but still, with the stuff I was doing, I had quite free hands and could, you know, work in a startup-like kind of way. And I really enjoyed that, so there was no reason to do anything else. Later, the company bought another company, so we went to 1,500 people, and then it really became a corporate. So, I mean, you couldn't decide anything, even though, you know, everything had to go through committees, had to be approved. So all the speed, all the fun, everything went away. So nevertheless, that I was actually sitting in a very good position there, having a very high paycheck, driving a nice car, and basically had all these things which, you know, one would think when you're young, it's really the great thing. I was simply not happy, so I thought I need to look around for something else. Then an old colleague from me called me, said, hey Morten, I'm now in Düsseldorf. We just set up a new company down here. We have been trying to do some stuff, but we can't get it work. Do you want to come down and help us? I said, you know, it depends, you know, different kind of things we need to agree on, and basically they accepted everything what I demanded, and then moved away from Hamburg, moved to Düsseldorf. Again, of course, great startup, stuff happening. Unfortunately, it turned out that it was a startup which was managed by people who were thinking like managing a corporate. So it also ended up, you know, not being that fun and not being that startup-like. So again, well, we have to move on. So in 2003, end of 2003, I went to a workshop in this town here. And I was down here for 4 days with some colleagues, and we of course did a bit of work, but we of course also went around and saw Split. We were in Croatia, we were in Amish, checking out all the stuff. And when we came back, one of the guys, which is from the Amish area, said, what do you think we set up a company in Split? Well, I said, well, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So basically, around, I think, April 2004, we had the first company set up. And at the beginning, I was here sometime. I was half time here and half time in Denmark. But we actually managed to get a company running, selling calling cards. Probably most of you don't even know what it is. Do you do? Yeah. But we're actually still selling that today. So we managed to build that up and actually have a quite nice earnings from that after some years. But of course now that business is gone, but we just keep it alive because there's lots of old customers who has been buying it from us since the beginning. So not to, you know, have some 70 years old grannies who's been using this product for 10 years, not to, you know, be mean to them. We just let it run. What I also did was operate internet cafes. I had, I think, 4 at one time, 2 in Split, 1 in Omish and 1 in Croatia. That was a nightmare. I mean, this with the traffic, I never thought about traffic because until now, everywhere I worked, I never had any issues with traffic. I was always living opposite to where the traffic issues were, so I never thought about that. But having an internet cafe in Omish and having one in Croatia in the summer in Croatia, then you learn that traffic is a problem. So I kind of, you know, decided that was not a good idea. So when the card was, when everything with the calling card was running, I had some extra free time and people were telling me, you know, coming from Denmark, there must be lots of people who wants to go to holiday in Croatia. Can't you rent out our apartments to them? Well, renting out apartments, maybe not a bad idea. So I set up a website for renting out apartments. Well, the site came online and I had a few houses on, but there was not really anybody who was renting the site. So I had to figure out what was the reason for that. Well, you kind of need customers to rent out apartments, and nobody, of course, could find my website. So I thought what to do about that. I started investigating a little bit on the internet, you know, AdWords, these kind of things. I didn't really have that much money, so investing heavily in AdWords was not kind of an option for me. But somebody was writing, you know, setting up a blog that can give you visitors. So I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. So I think by the end of 2007 or something like that, I set up my first blog and started blogging. And of course, half a year, not much happened. But I kind of started getting the hang of it, in which direction this could be done. I started studying a lot from forums, from people who was in this business for many years, and applied lots of these things which I learned. And slowly, it really started to grow. Then I figured out, you know, when I could do it with one blog, why don't do the same blog on multiple languages? So I started setting up on other languages, and I started adding more specific blogs. So by 2011, I had 50 blogs online. And I was making more than enough money to basically to live from it. And the money was made with Google AdSense, with different affiliate partners, Booking.com, car rental companies, whatever, which was touristic-like. And yeah, I mean, I could probably have kept doing that because there was really a business in it. But basically from the blogs, I figured out there's other things you could do. And basically the blogs was the reason why I started GetByBus. So back in the time of blogging, one of the very frequent questions I had is, can you tell me where we can find information about the buses from this or this city? Well, as I had that question repeatedly I started investigating myself. I'm a German guy, I'm writing on German, and I want to figure out when the bus is coming. It was literally impossible from almost any city in Croatia. I said, okay, that can be used to something. So I said, I'm going to buy Bus Croatia just to have it. I don't know exactly how I'm going to use it, but this could be very useful one day. Then by 2011, I thought, now is the time. Now I want to launch Bus Croatia and see if I can get it working. So I found myself a really good programmer, Ante, who helped me build up the site. And in 2012, we launched a site which didn't have anything to sell. The only thing which was available on the site was timetables. And the timetables, where did we find them? We find them on ministry websites, on all kinds of places where we could dig in and find some information. We simply just took that information and set it up in a system where it was pretty easy to find timetables. So, and basically what happened from that was that In 2012, we had almost 200,000 visitors just looking at the timetable, not being able to buy anything, just checking out when the bus was running. In 2013, it really started scaling up. So I could see this can actually become something where you can earn quite a bit of money. Imagine with 800,000 people with a conversion of 1%, you have 8,000 buyers. With 2%, you have 16,000 who wants to buy a product, but I didn't have anything to sell. So that was obvious that something could be done in that direction. So basically, we solved one of the hard things, which is the big problem from the startup. That was actually, we started reverse. We solved that from the beginning. What we were missing was a platform and actually a product to sell. So building a platform for buses, when you have absolutely no experience with buses except for riding with Croatia Split or other local buses around, that's quite a challenge. So what do? How do you define how the product needs to be? Well, there's not much options, you know. There's only one way to go. And then you sit down, you discuss it, and you come up with some solution. And if you're not happy, you simply repeat. And that's kind of like the process. Of course, if you put some meat on the grill while you're doing that, that's also very helpful. So one of the issues we had to solve was how the core product should work. The easy option would be to make a meta search engine. Simply we would gather all the data from companies, hook them up with an API, present the stuff on our website, send the customers back to them to book the ticket. Then we would have nothing to do with passengers, nothing to do with all these things which are not so nice. But finding companies in this region who has an API, who actually has any IT system, was not so easy. So basically, that was simply not possible. Same issue with the booking engine. We could make the booking engine and basically let the partners handle the clients, but with all the tourists having partners only speaking Croatian, how should they handle Italians? How should they handle all these kind of other languages? So basically, we could also see that could not be an option. So we had to go with a full case where we would take care of everything from the side of the passengers, and the job of the bus company would be to drive the bus. Another issue we had to figure out was how to price this, because again, we didn't have any experience. So we somehow from different channels managed to look into what the bus stations was charging. So we thought if we go a little bit lower than that, that could be an entry option. If we also make a solution with a zero investment, then probably that could also be a very helpful thing when we had to speak with the bus companies. So basically no sale, no cost and all this. So that was kind of the model we agreed on, and yeah, that's basically still the model we are working with today. So the other option we also had to do was defining what do we want to do with this in the long term. We had Bus Croatia, we saw it was working great. But if we also want to sell bus tickets in Sweden, in Ghana, in Australia later, maybe Bus Croatia is not going to be the optimal solution. So one option was simply to replace the domain, but then we would lose, for this region where we started up everything, we would not be as strong as we were with Bus Croatia. So we decided we go with two-domain strategy, we keep Bus Croatia, and we add a global site, which then became GetByBus. And by the way, I don't know if any of you has been through this finding a domain and all this name. I mean, it's a nightmare researching all this and figuring out what you actually call it. But once you start working with it and you kind of say, we will start with this one, then we can always change it later. Once you work with it for 6 months, that becomes the name because it becomes natural to you. So by the beginning of 2014, basically we solved also the issue. We actually had a platform which was ready and which could be used. So now we had the issue suppliers. We still needed to find bus companies who would buy into this idea, give us their inventory so we could add it to the system and actually sell the tickets. Of course, when you develop something, you think everybody thinks the same of your product. If you think it's great, everybody else must think it's great. And they, by default, would see the idea and the benefits for them. Of course, that was not the case. Most of the companies we deal with, basically, the owners of these companies are people who, at that time, their knowledge of IT was sending an SMS. Then you come to them and tell them, we have a product here which can, is actually good for your business. Selling online, they just look like one big question mark. So the process of actually getting it out there was really hard, and my good colleagues Teresa and Vivi, they really tried hard catching the right persons out there, and finally we managed to find one guy who basically understood this, because he had been working, he had this idea by himself, so when he saw how many visitors we had, he fully understood this was the way to go. So he ended up arranging a meeting with the FDM of the company, the CEO of the company, and I think it was a 3-5 minute meeting or something like that, and then we had a deal and we could start up with that one. But it's a tough thing when you need to do something, is to get actually, when you're doing a platform, you need to have both clients and partners in that sense. So in the beginning of March, we basically have sold all 3 things, ready to go. So Ante pushed the launch button on the 24th of March, and we sold the first ticket. Then that was really a day where you think, wow, it actually works. But of course, on the 25th and the 26th, we were pulled back on the ground, no tickets sold. That's kind of what happens. But of course, it took off, and we ended up selling 25,000 tickets in 2014, having actually not that much inventory. I think maybe at that time we had 4 or 5 bus companies. I can actually see that. No, actually we ended up 14 we ended up on, but most of them came end of the year. Anyway, since it started running, this is what we have been doing. We have simply tried to scale up the platform by getting the demand to grow, getting more visitors. This year we will probably have around 20 million people on the site. And of course, to make money out of that, we need more partners. Currently we have 65 direct partners. And what do I mean with direct partners? That's companies where we have all their inventory directly entered into our system because they don't have any IT system themselves. The indirect partners is bus companies, inventory from bus companies, which we pull from aggregators. So currently we cover basically we have inventory in all countries in Europe. But of course, in Croatia and the neighboring country, that's where we have the biggest density, as it was here we started. For the partners, we have been developing additional things. We have been developing ticket shops. Most of them have set up now smaller websites. So now we made a ticket shop for them so you could buy only their tickets when you came from their website. Some of them use even the ticket shop as their website. We have done a POS application. As you all know, you need to do fiscalizacja when you sell something in Croatia. Since 2017, I think, that also applies when you sell a ticket on the bus. So that was actually one of the first countries where this law was applied to transportation. In most other countries, it's not necessary. So we developed an application for the company so that they can fiscalize on the bus. We did an agency interface, and of course we did a administration system where they can do all kinds of stuff. Towards the clients, we of course have spent a lot of time on improving the UX. I think, I don't know, are we on the 8th, 9th version now? Something like that of the website. I don't know, with the apps, probably 3rd, 4th version. And that's of course something which, I mean, if you're working on the web and doing some kind of a, it's never going to stop. So that's That's simply something you have to do. And of course, as you saw before, we have been working on increasing the inventory so that people can book also, trips if they travel around between different countries. We have introduced a voucher system, which has been very successful, and of course, lots of other things. Of course, we couldn't have done this if we were not able to gather some great people to help us with this. So we have been moving office quite often till now because, office in Split, I don't know, most of you, if you have tried looking for an office, you know it's kind of a bit of a nightmare. So we have moved 3 times till now, but I think now finally we found a location where we can stay. We just expanded the location so that we can have a total of 40 people. So I think for the next, probably till end of next year, we're good. So this is kind of an overview of what we made. Any questions in between? No? So what's the next plan? Of course, we want to increase the density in as many countries in Europe where we are already present. Here in Croatia, we have maybe 90% density. If we can reach above 50 in most countries, it would be great, but there's still a long way to go, especially if you need to catch these small bus companies where there's no IT, you need to do everything for them. That's simply the conditions of the market. So it takes much more time than one would think. What we of course also want to do is to expand to other continents. Probably by the end of this year, we will be present with the first bus companies in Australia and also North America. But potentially we should basically go everywhere. And a big thing which we will really start pushing now is to move people. We have a new app coming out now here with much more functionalities. As soon as we have that in place, we want to start pushing people to use the app instead of the web. So basically, we basically just started. We'll see where it takes us, but I think there's a lot of potential. I think maybe what we have now is some promille of the potential market, so it's just work from now on.
What marketing channels do you use besides buying Dingac?
Buying Dingac? Well, more than 90% of the traffic we generate organically. Of course, because I did all the SEO work I learned from the blog, I have applied that to GetByBus. So throughout the years, we have been able to generate quite a big part of our traffic. We are, of course, expanding to do more and more marketing in other senses. But because of the nature of the business, there is some complication that there's many traditional things we cannot really make because we are a platform. But of course, everywhere where we see there's an option, we go into it. But it's not, that easy.
What is the technology behind the platform?
Ante?
Did you fire anyone during this journey?
Yes, we did, and I think that's pretty natural. I mean, when you grow a team,
When did you fire your first employee?
I think maybe in 16.
Second day, no tickets.
Yeah, all of them out, yeah. I think maybe 15 or 16, yeah. I think you cannot avoid that when you keep growing and all the stuff, You need to see how people fit to the team. You cannot see that from an interview. You need to see how it works on a day-to-day basis.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How does the data get synchronized with partners? If they sell the ticket, do they use your platform all the time?
You mean depends.
You do not do overbooking or something?
Yeah, that can happen. I mean, the structure of the market, especially down here. Historically, all tickets more or less were sold on the bus station. The bus stations are analog units. There's, except for a few bus stations in Croatia, all of them operate on the phone. So that means a bus company gives 5 tickets to bus station A, 3 tickets to B, and when the bus is getting full, they're calling out, can you take 2 away? Of course it goes wrong, because it's analog, but the problem is, it's the bus station who don't want to move to digital. We could do it tomorrow if they wanted to, but they want to protect their business by basically keeping it analog, because then it makes it very complicated for the bus companies to manage it.
So actually the bus companies, they update the information.
So basically they have access, for most departure, we sell the most tickets. At least for everything which is touristic related, we sell the majority of the ticket. So of course they have real-time access to see how many tickets are sold. They can also, on some routes there's a limitation of 5 tickets, of some there's 10, others there's open-end. But they have real-time access to these data, and basically they have what they call operational guys, which are the ones sitting with the phone, you know, this colored over here, reduce tickets, add 3 tickets, and they're fixing it.
They make sure how their buses are.
That's their job, and that is what they do. And of course, some bus companies do this great, some are not that good at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not your responsibility to...
We cannot do it. If we had access to everything, it would be fine, and we will make sure it could never happen. And then you have another thing which you need to think about. It also happens that there's ghost passengers on the buses. People which has no ticket, and for some reason they are on the bus. How would you count them in? So there's a lot of, actually the business, you would think running a bus is pretty simple, but if you could compare it, for instance, to the flight industry, running buses is way more complicated. Think about if you have a bus or a flight from Zagreb to Split. There's one entry point, there's one exit point. When you set up a price of 150 euro, you do some yield management, some dynamic pricing, you know, it's only one price. If you have a bus running from Zagreb to Split, which goes via the coast, it has 13, 14 access and entry points. So that alone is, when you need to set a price, that's 110 prices. Then you have child prices base, you have student prices, and if you then add yield and all these kind of things, it is really complicated. And you have lots of issues which are very, very hard to solve in the situation. We of course try all the time to push the bus companies by giving them, helping them, supporting it from the IT side with solutions which can move them in that direction. But many times it's a mental thing, you know. It simply takes time for them to see. And if we manage to get, let's say, 3, 4 of them to move to a new solution, what we have seen is it takes, then the other ones will follow. But it's knocking in the door with the first couple of them, which is the hard part. And you have lots of other issues which people don't think about with buses. For instance, we are doing a review system. And we introduced this so that people, of course, could tell about the experience, but also to help the bus companies, because when the managers and owners are sitting back in the office and the bus is running from another city where they don't know what is happening. Maybe they have 13 stops on the way, and they have people on the first and the last physical location where the bus comes. But what happens in between, they don't know. But by introducing the reviews, actually, if some people are riding, you know, this bus driver is talking on the phone, this bus driver is smoking, this bus driver is doing this, all this information they would learn from these things, and they can take actions on their side in educating the drivers how to actually behave.
Do you do the youth management or the bus company?
No, basically we are not doing it now because of these complications. There's too much analog things implemented.
I noticed that prices are rising when the starting date, starting hour is getting closer. So then the prices, the tickets are getting higher.
No, that we are not doing now. We have what we are doing. We are working with. From a technical point of view, we could do all these things, but we are not doing it because there's, in the nature of how it works with the analog bus station, it is quite complicated. Because if we would do yield on the web, and let's say the bus is getting full, and we have access to, let's say 45 ticket out of 50 on a bus. And let's say this is a popular departure, it gets full, so the last 3 tickets on the web gets on, you know, normally it would be 150, they get on 250. Then it happens that these 5 tickets, which would always be sold on the bus station, for some case they are not sold, but they have a fixed price. So the customer shows up and can buy one at the bus station for 150, but the price on the web is 250. And that problem, we cannot solve that alone. We can solve it when we have all of them integrated, then we can do all this stuff. Yeah.
What is one of the best ways to reduce carbon footprint?
Buses.
Wow.
Well, I mean, one example is here in, I mean, in general, if you can fill the buses which are not full, everything you add additionally is basically carbon free. So just take the example of OpenCoffee Split here. When they're talking about improving for the environment, they buy new buses and do all this thing. What they should do, they should make it possible for me when I sit at home, I should figure out when the bus is going to arrive down at the bus stop. That's what they should do, and it costs literally nothing to do it. Then you could move people. Now I have to take a car and Uber, which is not very environmental friendly, but I don't want to wait 20 minutes down at the bus stop because I have no clue when the bus is going to show up. So these kind of things, if you can make it easy for people to use buses, I also think more and more people will use the buses. Actually, there's conducted several surveys regarding why people do not travel with the bus. This was mainly in city and related to city buses and regional buses. But 25 to 30% of the people do not take the bus because they either do not understand the price list or do not understand the timetable. And that's basically an IT equation. If you solve that, you have 25% more potential customers. But it seems like, you know, it's a hard thing to bring onto the people who's deciding in this area.
And what are the main differences between Croatia and Denmark?
Well, I mean, basically what I wrote here, if I could have built GetByBus in Denmark, I think from a short answer, no. And that is simply for the reason Croatia is a bus country, Denmark is not. Denmark is a train country. Maybe I could build GetByTrain up there. But again, also not because there's only one train company, so probably the chances would have been very small.
Which bus company was the first one which recognized this as a potentially good platform?
The first company we signed was Globe Tour. Yeah. No, and I mean, basically in Denmark, as I said, there's no market for it, and also I think important for us at the beginning was we had all the tourists. We knew people from lots of other countries were used to buy stuff online. So if we made a good platform, they would probably also would not hesitate buying bus tickets online.
Do you have competing companies now trying to follow your model, do the thing you're doing?
Yeah, there's quite a few around Europe which have popped up over the years.
Were you the first one to start?
We were one of the first one, yeah. I think there was 3, 4 which started around, pretty much around the same time, but in different countries in Europe, and with different business models.
This is different though than a lot of the bus companies where there's only like maybe three major bus companies that they work with when you buy a bus ticket through some of these companies. You're dealing with a lot more bus companies
Yeah,
than
yeah,
some of these
yeah,
competitors.
yeah. And basically we are only the platform, so the bus companies are their own brand. We just sell the ticket and make it the data easy accessible for travelers, but the bus company, they operate everything themselves, that's all their responsibility.
So what about scaling in other countries? Is this completely starting from the beginning with the building of supply chain? Can you apply the same strategy as in Croatia, or?
Well, to do the same as in Croatia would be very hard in many other countries, but I also don't think that's necessary. I think the model where we already have now, where we have aggregators, which gives us access to other markets where we are not present ourselves, we would use that model to basically to go to the other countries. What we would then do here in our core market, where we are strong and where we are sitting, is of course we will not only do buses. We're going to use the platform here to add all kinds of other transportation and grow that from here. And at the same time, simply expand the reach using partners to cover the rest of the world. So that's kind of the idea. Because I mean, we have done all this without any bootstrapping. We've done this without any capital, building this up. We of course had the option to get investments, but that would basically change the nature of how the company is built up and the ideas and the fund, how we think it should be done. So, yeah. Well, I think this, I mean, you pretty much heard, you know, I mean, why I think Split is a great place. I mean, it's first of all, it's a fantastic place to live. But I also, my experience from doing several startups, you know, you can actually do it. It's not always easy, but it's possible. And it's worth the effort. And I think with what we have seen, what Tony is doing, what Split Tech City is, you know, that we are really building up a community. I think all that should be a great foundation that we should see more companies pop up. I think what I forgot to mention before, I was always thinking when I was doing all this with the blogs and I was working with affiliate, I thought, why are all these companies sitting outside? We have a touristic country, we have all these experience from doing tourism. Why are all the platforms dealing with tourism, why are they not sitting in Croatia? It made no sense to me. So I think we really, with all these things, experience and knowledge we have from these markets, I think there's lots of potential what we could do. And of course with the university it's clear. And if you're looking to the home market with various products, of course the online share is still limited if you compare it with Scandinavia, for instance, but that's going to change. It also changed in Scandinavia. I mean, my father is 75. He buys most of the stuff on the internet by himself. He fixes everything. So there's no reason to believe that that's not going to happen here. Maybe it happens in 10 years, maybe in 15 years, but it will continue to grow, which also means even I could think of lots of portals or things that, you know, which if I had the time, I was not doing this, which I would set up on the internet because I think there's actually quite a big market in doing so. Well, that's basically it. Any more questions? Well, then it's beer time.